All right. So yeah, good day, class. And since we are currently experiencing power interruptions now from time to time here in my area, that's why I opted to record this quick lecture now for today in our subject, business research. Okay. Now, so from the previous lecture now that I provided you, no, I taught you there some tips or guides on how to properly write your research titles, no? And since it is a subject requirement, no, for the class for you to have your title defense, okay? Now, so for today's lecture video, no, I will be teaching you or I will be giving you some tips no, on how to prepare for your title defense, no, and to give you some common or possible questions no, na itatanong sa inyo of the panelists no, so that you will be prepared to answer those questions and to get your title approved. Okay? Now, so possible, some of you may ask, no, sir, bakit, why do we need to do this title defense? No, well, normally, there are three levels of defense no, na nangyayari sa isang research or there are three levels of defense no, na kailangang pagdaanan ng mga researchers. No, so what are those three levels? No? Meron tayong tinatawag na the first one is the title defense. No, the second one is the proposal defense. No, and the third and the last no, is yung tinatawag natin of course no, the final defense. Okay? No, so once again, in this in this lecture video, no, I'm going to discuss with you why do we need to do this title defense. I'll give you some tips for preparations and what are the common questions na itatanong sa inyo ng mga panelists no, for you to be prepared no, and for you to get your titles approved. No? So first question, why do we need to do this title defense? No? So for some cases or sa ibang students or sa ibang classes, wala nang nangyayaring title defense. Nagkakaroon na lang ng presentation and approval or rejection of the presented topics and titles no, na nangyayari between the researchers or the students and the research advisor. Okay? Now, on the other hand, for some instances naman, no, nagkakaroon ng title defense no, and itong title defense na to is ginagawa no, as a formality no, or for formality for doing the research. No, in our case, no, the reason why we need to do this is because this is a requirement for us no, by our department. Okay? Now, and one of the advantages that we can benefit from doing this title defense no, is that the panelists no, can give you feedback on your topics or can give you some recommendations or possibilities of doing the research. No, kasi technically, at the end of doing the research or at the end of the semester no, for the final defense from our class no, is sila rin yung magiging panelists nyo. No? And it will not be more difficult to defend your research outputs because from the start, no, they already have an idea or your panelists already have an idea what you are planning to study in your research. No, since dumaan kayo no sa title defense, no? So yung mga yung panelists nyo, the set of panelists from the title defense to the proposal to the final defense will be the same no, the same individual or the same panelists, no? So from doing this title defense na gagawin natin, you will have an advantage or benefit na mas magiging madali no, or mas magiging hindi kayo masyadong mahihirapan on doing the research because there is a panelist or there are someone that will give you suggestions or recommendations or feedback no, for doing the research. Okay? Well, basically, no, in the title defense, no, the goal is for you or for each group no, to present at least three topics and three research titles no, to our panelists no, and to have them approve your titles for your research before you actually start doing no, the research itself. Okay. Now, but before the approval of your research titles, now the panelists will definitely ask you some questions, no, for them to evaluate, for them to assess whether your topics or your titles, no, are subjects nga for i-approve ba itong mga titles na ipe-present nyo, or these titles that you will present are subject for rejection. Okay? No, and that's the reason kung bakit the panelists will ask you some questions, no, for you to defend, no, your presented topics or titles, if it's subject for approval or if it's subject for rejection, no, which is commonly ang nagiging perception ng karamihan is that kapag sinabing title defense, no, is madali lang yan, no, i-defend mo lang naman yung title, papakita mo lang naman yung title, but it's ano, no, hindi siya ganun kadali na ipapakita mo lang yung title, no. In title defense, okay, based on my experience, no, being both a researcher and being a panelist, no, in a title defense, no, the panelists will take a look, no, at every different perspective, no, based on your presented topic and titles. No, and the panelists will certainly ask you some questions. Okay? Kumbaga parang pinaplano pa lang natin na gawin ng isang research, no, kailangang ma-defend na natin na ito yung mga gagawin natin. No, ito yung goal natin kung bakit natin ito gagawin. No, if ever that we will encounter some problems, or let's say there are some problems, or there are some or yeah, if in case we encounter this kind of problems, these are the possible solutions. No, para if in case let's say may mga loopholes pala, no, in doing that kind of research na hindi natin nakita, but with the help of the panelists, no, who has a certain knowledge with the process, no, they can help us to identify na ay oo nga pala, kailangan pala natin gawin to. Ay oo nga pala, ito pala yung mga possible challenges na may encounter natin while doing the research. No, kumbaga in the way of questioning ng mga panelists, no, magkakaroon tayo ng mga realizations. No, ay oo nga, no, may hirapan pala tayong gawin ng area na ito kasi ganito, kasi ganyan, no? Kung kayang gawa ng solutions or paraan, no, sige, let's proceed doing this research. Pero what if based from those realizations, ay oo nga, no, may hirapan pala tayo sa ganitong aspects na ganito. Hindi pala natin magagawa itong aspect na ito. Sige, let's reject this. Itong isa na lang kung gawin natin kasi ito mas kaya or mas may possibility na mabuo. No? And if we will take a look, no, at the logic of this explanation, now this is one of the objectives, no, why we are doing title defense. Okay? So that before we actually start doing the research, no, na-evaluate na natin, no, or na-assess na natin yung mga possibilities or possible problems that we will encounter, no, while doing this specific or this particular research topic or research title, no, para mas maging madali yung path na tatahakin natin, no, para mas maging mas mabilis na natin magagawa, no, and mas mabilis na nating matatapos. Okay? Yeah. Well, in this lecture video, yung slide. Okay. No? In this lecture video, no, I'll give you some tips for preparations for your title defense. Okay? Ano ba yung mga tips? First, tip number 1, no, is to arrange your titles into ranks. Okay? First is, di ba, I ask each group, no, from the class to come up with 3 topics or 3 research titles, no, that you can work on for your research. Okay? So of course, no, the first thing that you need to do is for you to arrange those titles into ranks. Okay? Now, so from those 3 topics or titles, no, you should arrange them from rank 1. Alin ba sa mga topic or title na meron kayo ang pinakagusto nyong gawin or pinakagusto nyong ma-approve? Alin ba doon yung rank 2? Ang next na gusto nyong gawin, if in case hindi ma-approve yung first title. And rank 3, no? Gusto nyo din gawin tong topic na to or title na to, pero with least priority compared to the first 2 topics. Okay? And because these 3 topics or titles that you will present are upon approval pa, no, ng mga panelists. No, but although you arrange your titles or topics into 3, no, rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, but you still need to present all of those topics. No, but sa pagpo-propose ng bawat topics or titles, no, you need to see to it, no, that you are presenting each titles as if all of them are gustong-gusto nyong gawin. Now, you have to see to it that when you present each titles to the panelists, no, all of them are equally favorable, no, sa inyong group. Okay? Para kung, let's say, alin man dun sa tatlong topics or titles na na-present ninyo yung mga approved, no, is maging favorable pa rin sa inyong grupo. No? Of course, you have to prepare yourselves, no, na may mga instances or may mga cases na out of those 3 topics, no, that you will present, no, there's also a possibility that all of them will be rejected. No, but since I let you present your topics to me first, no, I'm confident enough naman na each group is merong ma-approve na title yung ating mga panelists, no? So that's the first step, is for you to arrange your titles into ranks, no? So and the reason kung bakit I want you to arrange, no, your titles into ranks, no? Why is it that you need to arrange your titles into rankings? So it is because na there's a possibility, no, that one of the questions, no, na itatanong sa inyo ng panelists, since you are going to present at least 3 titles, no, is among the 3 proposed titles, no, which do you highly prefer, no? That's why, no, before the title defense, no, dapat na pagkasunduan na ninyo as a group, no, kung alin doon sa tatlong prepare ninyo or alin doon sa tatlong topics or titles na present ninyo ang pinakagusto nyong gawin as a group, no, and arrange them from rank 1 to 3, no, so that if in case the panelists will ask you this question among the 3 proposed titles, which do you highly prefer, no, and the panelists will evaluate and assess kung bakit yun yung mga nasa priorities ninyo, no? And once again, it's subject for approval and for rejection pa. Okay? So that's the first tip. Now, the second tip, or tip number 2, no, is to prepare a set of tentative statements of the problem for each title. Okay? So you have to prepare at least 3 tentative statements of the problem for each title. Okay, and why do you need to prepare, no, a set of these tentative statements? Okay, it is because normally, no, the panelists, based on my experience, no, the panelists is always asking this question: if this title would be the approved title, what possible statement of the problem will you have? Okay, so if in case na itanong ito sa inyo ng panelists, no, at least you are prepared to answer this type of question. Okay? If you can already present, no, the potential statements of the problem for each title, no, that would be great, meaning hindi na kayo masyadong tatanungin ng panelists nyo when it comes to the potential statement of the problem, no, kasi kayo mismo nakapag-ready na kayo. Na iba pa rin talaga yung laging handa, that you have always something na prepare ninyo, no, to defend the title and to have your titles approved, no? Para hindi na kayo ma-retitle defense, no? And hindi na kayo mag-isip ulit ng iba pang topics or titles for approval na naman, no? So it's always better to ready or to include the potential statements of the problems, no, for each title that you will present. No, para if in case the panelists need some clarifications na bakit ito yung gusto nyong pag-aralan, ano yung mga possible questions, or what is the main research question, supporting questions. Now, you can already identify and provide answers by providing, no, this set of possible statements of the problem. No? And the third tip is to know the meaning of the wordings that you will use in your title. Okay? No, so it is also important that you are prepared, no, to answer or to explain the meaning of, or you know how to explain each major term or keywords, no, or wording na ginamit niyo sa title niyo. No, why? Bakit? No, it is because normally, no, the panelists would check if you know what you are saying, or the panelists would check if you know what you are doing, or if you know what's your end goal of doing that type of research. Now, that's why normally they would ask you the question, what do you mean by, no, the wordings inside your title. No, kunwari, kunwari, meron kayong ginamit or for example, you use the word implementation of yada yada churba churba chuchu. So normally the panelists would ask you what do you mean by implementation? Or let's say you use the word perception. What do you mean by the word, or what do you mean by perception, or what do you mean by integrating, or what do you mean by efficiency or relevance, no, or other major keywords, no, na ginamit niyo in your research titles. Now, for example, ano ba yung mga natatandaan kong mga keywords na pwede nyo magamit based sa mga na-present yung title? For example, what do you mean by management styles? Or what do you mean by staff productivity? No? So the panelists would check, no, if you know yung tinatawag natin na call to action, no, na gusto nyong mangyari dun sa research na gagawin nyo. Okay, now that's why they would check if you know what do you mean by the words, no, that you use inside your title, no. So it's also important, no, for you to know what do you mean by the words, no, that you use, no. It's important for you to prepare yourself and to know the meanings of the wordings or the keywords, no, that you will use in your title. Okay, kasi minsan sa title defense, no, in the way minsan in the way you read, or the way that you mention the term in your research title, no, parang alam na alam mo yung mga term na parang alam na alam mo yung mga term na ginagamit, or mga term na ginamit mo in your title, pero the moment na tinanong ka, mabablanko ka, no, because you are not prepared how to explain the term, no. So that's why it's important that before your title defense, okay, before your title defense, you know the meaning of the wordings in your research title, so that you can convince your panelists, no, na ma-approve yung title ninyo, no, kasi from the title itself pala, from the wordings or from the keywords na ginamit niyo pa lang in your title, you can already explain what's the meaning of it. You can already explain kung ano ba yung goal ninyo or yung gagawin niyo from doing this research. Okay? So the fourth and this is tip number 4. The fourth and the last tip, no, that I can give you to prepare for your title defense is to prepare answering common questions from the panelists to defend your title for approval. Okay? So ano-ano ba yung mga common questions, no, na possible na itanong sa inyo? No, aside from the first 3 questions na nabanggit ko kanina, like among the 3 proposed titles, which do you highly prefer? If this would be the approved title, what possible statement of the problem will you have, or what do you mean by? So these are some other common questions na pwedeng itanong sa inyo, or common questions na possible itanong sa inyo ng inyong panelists for your title defense. Okay? So what problem prompted you to propose such a study, or kaya what problem do you want to address in your research title? Okay? In this kind of question, no, na pwedeng itanong sa inyo, it's very important that you can explain the problems, no, that you encounter, why you come up on doing this kind of research. Okay? Kasi diba, I mentioned in my previous lecture that before we come up with a topic or title, no, we should check first ano ba yung mga problems that we wanted to solve. Okay? Or ano ba yung mga problems that we seek solutions. And if we do that, or if we do this kind of research, or if sa pag-iisip pa lang or pagkama pa lang ng research, one of the things that you consider is ano ba yung mga problems that we need to provide solutions, no? And kapag yun yung ginawa ninyo, hindi kayo mahihirapan in answering this kind of questions. No, because you have a background problem. No, you know why you choose this kind of topic or title. No? So this is an important question, no. Ano ba ang problem, or ano ba yung problema na i-address ninyo sa inyong research? No, sa anong problema yung pinanggagalingan nyo why you come up in proposing such research titles? Now, because we have to consider that one of the reasons why we are doing research is because we need to provide answers, or we need to provide solutions. Okay? No, so it's important that we are prepared, no, to answer this type of questions, no, regarding the problems, no, that we wanted to solve, or the problems, or the reasons behind our research. Okay? Next question, what possible contributions can this study yield contribution or contributions can this study yield, or what's the essence of your proposed study, no? So you also need to identify what will be the possible or the potential contributions ang maibibigay nitong research na gagawin ninyo, or ano ang magandang maitutulong nito, or who would benefit from doing this kind of research. Okay? Now, in title defense, now although title defense pa lang siya, now you can defend it by knowing the other perspectives now covered by such titles, now including who would benefit from doing such research. No, so it's very important that you should know the answer to this kind of questions. No, na hindi pwedeng magpo-propose ka lang ng title but you don't know the possible benefits, or who will benefit from doing such research, or what would be its contribution to the society, or what would be its contribution to the business. Now, since we are doing business research, or what would be the contribution of this kind of research to the environment where this topic belong to, no? No, that's why it's also important, no, that you can point out, no, and you can identify the value or the significant contribution that your study, or that the study that you are presenting or proposing, no, ano ba yung maibibigay niya, no, what the study can give, no? It is like you are telling the panelists that these are the possible contributions, or these are the benefits from this study, no? So basically, to answer this type of questions, parang you are conveying, no, or parang hinihikayat mo yung panelists mo that because of these contributions, or because of this possible contributions na may magandang maibibigay, may idudulot, may magandang mangyari, you should approve this title, or something like that, no? So that's why it's important for us to identify, no, the possible contributions, or that ano ba yung essence na maibibigay nitong study na nagagawin natin, no? Kasi hindi pwede nagagawa lang tayo ng research para, let's say, as a requirement lang, no? We are doing a research because we wanted to provide solution, no? Yun nga sabi natin kanina, we wanted to provide a solution, we wanted to provide or we need to provide um, contributions, no, sa economy, or saan man, sa business, no, or sa environment na meron tayo, no? So next possible question, what theory can you anchor in this study, or what does the literature say about your problem, or what does the literature say about your study? Okay? In this kind of questions, no, although medyo malalim na ito, no, it's very important, no, na meron kayong advanced readings na ginawa, or meron kayong advanced readings na gagawin, no? Para meron na kayong mga advanced theories. No, may mga advanced theories na kayo na hinanap, no, that can defend your title for approval. No, although this is just a title defense. No, sir, title defense pa lang naman, but bakit kailangan namin ng mga ganyang details? Yes. No, this is just a title defense, pero dapat marami na kayong baon sa bulsa ninyo, no, na pwede nyong isagot, no, na itong title or topic na ito is merong mga foundations, no, kung bakit ito yung dapat yung gawin, no? Kumbaga, bago kayo pumunta or bago kayo lumusok sa gera, no, hindi lang dapat baril or yung title lang yung dala ninyo. No, dapat yung baril is meron na ring bala, and may mga naka-reserve ng bala. No, and that's the purpose kung bakit may mga panelists, na hindi lang kayo magpe-present ng title. Dapat in presenting those titles, you can already answer some questions, no, to prove that your title is subject for approval. No, kasi if in case that we can defend, no, the title, and we can provide, or we can answer these questions na common questions na possible na itanong sa inyo, then your title, hindi nyo madedefend yung title ninyo, no? So that's why it's important na meron tayong advanced readings, or meron tayong mga baong bala, no? So that we can defend, no, your title, no? And napakahalaga na dapat paghandaan itong mga tanong na ito, no, kasi kailangan natin i-discuss yung mga basis, lalo na katulad nitong literature foundations, no, kailangan ma-discuss natin yung mga basis or foundations ng gagawin natin, no, for us to come up with the framework, no? Kasi kailangan nating ma-identify na dapat meron tayong pagkukunan ng literature, no, or meron tayong theoretical foundation na kakailanganin natin para gawin ang ating theoretical framework, no? Na yung mga theoretical foundations dapat tayo na kakailanganin natin, kailangan nating ipopropose sa study natin, no? And the reason why panelists are asking these questions, or especially this type of question about that what theory can you anchor or what literature can you anchor in your study is may mga situations kasi the reason why panelists are asking this is because para ma-identify kung yung research ba na gagawin ninyo is merong ma-anchor na theory dun sa study na gagawin nyo, kasi normally most of the researchers they tend to change titles or they tend to change the topics kahit nakagawa na sila ng chapter 2 at nakagawa na sila ng chapter 1 at ginagawa na lang chapter 2 is because nagpapalit sila or nagbabago sila is because they can find the appropriate or relevant theory ng study na ginagawa nila. Kasi kung wala kang ma-anchor na theory, there's no theoretical foundations that can support your study. So it's also very important na we can already identify such details. Okay? Next, what variable will you include in your study, or what are your variables? In research title defense, it is also important, it's also very important na dapat aware na tayo sa mga variables sa title natin. Okay, sa topics na gagawin natin. Dapat we can already identify the dependent and independent variables, and we have to take note kapag sinabi nating independent variables is siya yung cause, while the dependent variable is siya yung effect, so ano ba yung mga variables na dependent variables na always na magdedepende sa independent variables natin. Okay, so those are some questions. Ayan. So those are some of the possible or common questions that your panelists will ask you to depend your research title for your title to be approved. Okay, or for your research title to get approval. So that's why I suggest that before we schedule the title defense, is that you start to prepare on answering those questions. Okay? So ngayon pa lang, it's important na in each group, you already brainstorm ideas and brainstorm details and do initial research for each research topic or title that you will present, and for each group to start preparing for your title defense, kasi mag-schedule tayo ng title defense, and yung mga panelists na invite natin are also the faculties under the department, the management department, so and sila rin yung mga panelists na makakasama natin at the end until the final defense. Okay? So once again, we are doing this research title defense for your panelists to give you suggestions based from your answers to the common questions I presented or I presented to you earlier. Actually, marami pang other possible questions, but normally those are the main common questions or palaging questions na palagi tinatanong in title defense, and ginagawa natin itong research title defense hindi para pahirapan kayo, kundi para mabigyan kayo ng tamang guides or instructions kung ano ba yung dapat gawin, or dapat bang ituloy yung ganitong klase ng topic sa research or hindi na, para hindi masasayang yung research efforts na gagawin ninyo, and before you actually start doing the research, kasi mahirap sa side nyo na let's say nagawa nyo na yung buong chapters, then at the final defense, subject for disapproval pala siya or subject for rejection pala yung study nyo. So nagsasayang lang tayo ng oras and efforts. So for your title defense presentation, for the presentation itself, this is the following data or this is the suggested data or information that you should present in your to your panelists in presentation itself, in PowerPoint presentation. So we need to identify the title. We are presenting the title, so we can give a little bit of introduction why we come up with this kind of title. Okay, and explain what. So we're going to explain the what, the how, the why, the who, and when. So dito sa PowerPoint presentation na ipe-present natin sa panelists, we will just add here small details or small text so that all the other details is explained natin verbally. So we will present the title. What is our presented title? Let's say title number 1. And to discuss what is, or to answer the question what is the topic? And what are the main research question, or what is the main research question, and what are the supporting questions. Okay, for the how we are going to conduct the study, what methods we will use, no, to conduct the study. Why? No, we need to identify the reasons for conducting the study. Who? Who are your target respondent or respondents? Where? The location of the study or the location of your target respondents, and when. Now, the time frame of doing the research. No? So in this title defense na gagawin ninyo, no, on the PowerPoint presentation itself that you will use, you need to indicate answering these questions, no, on a minimal text, and provide explanations. Okay? So that's it. This is just a quick lecture giving you tips or guides for your preparation on your title defense. If in case you have questions, feel free to leave your questions sa ating comment section, and if I have time, I will take time to answer those questions. Hopefully, ma-meet ko kayo. Magkaroon tayo ng synchronous lecture next week, and hindi putol-putol ang aking connection para makapag-schedule tayo, no? So, and for me to answer those questions. So, yun lang. For other details ng gagawin nating title defense, I will definitely let you know sa ating group chat.